Let's talk about these dictionary attacks. So, I go to somebody's Facebook page and I see that they have their dog's name and where they were born and what high school they went to and what the high school mascot was and what teams they played on and what things they did, and they were part of the band and they were a snare drummer, and they learn all this data about that person. It is your life laid out in social networking, and I collect it all up and I say, probably the passwords that they're going to use are going to have these elements, these components as a part of their password. I always see you on your Facebook page wearing blue. Blue's probably your favorite color. Blue will probably be part of your password. So that'll be part of my list of terms that I'm going to use to guess your password. I'm not going to do it individually. I'm going to say, this is a list of terms, a dictionary that is relevant to you, and I'm going to wrap that all up, and I'm going to create a dictionary file. I'm going to take this dictionary file, and I'm going to load it into my cracking application, my password guessing application, and I'm going to run it against that user account. Now, I also need the actual credential, the identity. So if it was logging in as Dean Bushmiller, I have to know that they log in as Dean Bushmiller. I need that first. Usually, that's pretty easy to figure out on most computers. It's usually the last credential that pops up. It'll be listed in the drop-down box, or if you type in the first character of that person's name, usually it pops up pretty easily for you at that moment in time on Windows systems. So get the identity that they're using, and then guess the password. We program that into our tool. Here's our dictionary. Here's the authentication credential. And then the program's going to go to the program. Our cracking program is going to be then run against that routine, against that particular authentication mechanism. If that's the login dialog box, or that's the website that we're going to authenticate, or it's the Word application, and we're actually trying to get into a particular Word document. Now, password cracking works really well on computers because computers will allow you to attempt many times. But there may be a mechanism in place, like 3 failed logon attempts will actually kick you off. So we probably don't want to do too much guessing there or online. And then when it comes to mobile forensics, if we guess the PIN wrong in a lot of cases, usually if we guess it wrong 10 times in a row, usually that will lock that out and we'll have to go back and do something else. We'll talk about that in the mobile section. But realize password guessing could lock this permanently or for a long period of time. So we really don't want to go at the guessing mechanism unless it's something like an online where there's no lockout at that point. I don't know if you noticed this lately in Google, but when I do my Gmail account and I log on there, if I mess it up 3 times in a row, it comes back to me and says, now you have to give us the password, and we want to go and give you the CAPTCHA, the little slanty letters. You're going to have to do 2 things because we want to slow you down. It may not stop you from guessing, but now you can't automate it because you've got to read the little squiggly letters. Remember, we're going to input each word in this list until we return the value that we want, which is approved authentication. That dictionary attack says this is a short list, that we're going to use those terms interchangeably a whole bunch of different times. But that's our list. That's our short list. Brute force says we want a really big dictionary. What kind of dictionary? Well, a dictionary of everything. We'll start with a password that's 1 character, A. And then we'll go a 1 character password, B, C. And we'll run through the alphabet of single characters and all the ASCII, all the things on the keyboard. We may even go to the Unicode level. Then what we'll do is we'll say, okay, it wasn't a 1 character password. Let's do a 2 character password. And then we run through AA, AB, AC, and we work our way through 26 times again, or however complex the password is. And now what we're doing is we're trying every possible value. That's brute forcing. So a dictionary would be a little short thing, and brute forcing would be even nonsensical stuff. Now, the reason why this takes longer is because we're going through more iterations. It's not because brute forcing costs more, it's just we're guessing a lot more times. what we tend to do is we tend to do hybrid attacks. Let's go back to the dictionary of you with all those characteristics that I know about you. Now what we'll do is we'll say, okay, well, he probably doesn't type in blue because that's his favorite color. He probably types in B, what looks like an L, the pike symbol, the U again, and then the E will turn that into a 3. So we'll translate to leet speak. So we've increased the complexity based on the fact that you don't want us to guess. You've learned some techniques out there. So now blue becomes 30 different iterations on blue. And blue is going to be attached to your dog's name, and then we're going to switch them around, and then we're going to invert them and put them on top of each other, and then we're going to add in your social security number. And by the way, what normally happens is people take elements, they'll take blue, and they'll always keep that the same, and they'll put that in the front or the back, and then they'll add on other things. So they'll keep on bolting on stuff. They won't intersperse them. So if you ever really want to mess with a password cracker, what you want to do is you want to take those two terms that it could guess and overlap them like this. It'll be a little bit more difficult for it to guess. But the hybrid attack says, I'll take your dictionary, and then I'll also add in some other brute forcing techniques along with this, and I'll guess those terms first. I'll keep track of those terms. Remember, hybrid attack is taking dictionary and brute force and bringing them together. You may even go to the next level, which is hybrid rule-based attack. Take a look here on the slide. When a user can, used when an attacker already has some information about the password itself. They know that they always hit this key. The attacker writes a rule so that the cracking software will generate only passwords that meet this rule. For instance, if you, in a forensics investigation, went up to the keyboard and you look down at the keyboard and you see that the X key is really worn and it's got a cut in it, or it's a lot of the paint's chipped off of the X in this particular case, more than likely they're using that in part of their password. It may be that on the keyboard we interrupt them, we see them, we take a video camera from the outside and we see, oh, the first character of his password is X. We write a hybrid rule-based attack against that to say, we know that the first character is X, so start your permutations there. Don't go A, B, C, D, no, don't do that. Start with X and then do all the other stuff that you're going to do. And again, we can write all sorts of rules in hybrid-based rule attacks to incorporate all the characters. We may see the first character and the last character, and we may know that it's 15 characters long. We need that edge to speed up the processing when it comes to hybrid rule-based attack. We can do that. We want to go to the next level and understand really what's happening in passwords. Remember, we took a password and converted it with a hashing algorithm. We turned it into a hash value. In brute forcing, we say, hey, we want to speed this up. What we're going to do is we're going to capture the hash from the machine. Now, we really need the password to present in most cases unless we're actually inside of the operating system. So what we do is we capture the hash value some way, shape, or form and then convert that back into the original password. If you've ever looked at a list of hashes, what you'll see is that it starts off with one character and then gives you the really long string, and then the next one down is, well, if we keyed in the word P for password, let's say we keyed in password, the string is this, and we keyed in password 1, the string is very different. If we could take all the strings of hashes and sort them the correct way so that the first hash that would be in the list would be all A's, the password that would be generated by all A's as a hash value would be some gobbledygook over here. When we go to sort through the table of all the different hash values, we sort the hash values. We don't sort the passwords. We sort the hash values, and the corresponding table has that password along with it. Now when we do our search on this 11 or 70 gig file, sometimes it's as much as 70 or 100 gigs worth of data, that could take a really long time if we were going through them based on the passwords here and trying to figure it out. But if we sorted all the hash values, now when we present that hash value that we have that's unique over here to this table, it's a lot easier to find it in the list. Okay, his hash starts with C. Don't look through the A's, don't look through the B's, look through the C's. Don't look through the D's. So now what we've done is we've taken what was originally for 16 different characters on on the first digit, and now we've narrowed that down to one character there. That makes our searching through the table faster. That's why it's called the rainbow table, because we're actually looking through the table. Once we match that individual hash value, then we look inside the table and say, what is the corresponding password in this table that matches that? Oh, it's password 22. Okay, now we can use that as our value to then go against all the authentication databases that that evildoer has. Let's talk default password databases. Now, for the individual user, we may not get in. But if that user installs their software and they use the defaults that the operating system gives them, they may create a separate account that is unique to them, but it may be that they keyed in a password or there was a default password for that particular operating system or that particular application, or maybe their Wi-Fi access. There may be default passwords there. And what we want to do is we want to go look up those default passwords. So installed programs have to start somewhere, and the manufacturer says the default password is this. And there are people out there that collect all the default passwords on the web, and they say, here's a list of the default passwords for these. So if you encounter that Linksys wireless access point, try this password because that's the one that was originally done with the programming. And you can go to any one of these locations and look up all those different pieces of software and pieces of hardware. More than likely, when you're dealing with an individual, they're going to have 5 or 6 different tools that they're using. Maybe it's a router, or it's an access point, or it's a password on a printer that has printed data inside of it. More than likely, they're going to leave one of those as the default because they really weren't thinking about it from a technology standpoint, and you can then go look that up and use that default password to gain access, to get a foothold into collecting the data as a forensics investigator that you need. You want to unencrypt it and you want to look. Okay, you got some tools here. Kane, PWDump, Loft for Loftcrack. Inside of your 2 major tools, Encase and FTK, they actually have password databases that you can run against these particular assets. So that's built into your forensics tools. Now remember, there are layers of passwords that we have to deal with. And we're going to look at some of these layers. The physical layer, literally we have a CMOS or a BIOS password. We have a BIOS password that is protected by the CMOS. We can fix that. We can use a hard drive dongle, which is usually a USB key. That's the case of FTK or Encase. They literally have, okay, you want to authenticate? I'm not going to give you the password. We're going to put the password on this key, and you plug it in there. If it's a password dongle thing, and you know that that's the application, you've got to go seek out that dongle. It's a physical piece. Go find it. Remember, the operating system has encryption for the file system itself. It has an entry into the particular user profile, and you may even have encrypted files and folders inside of that. And then we can go to the application layer where password protected applications, software and dongle there, and encrypted volumes and folders like things like TrueCrypt. So those are the layers of password. We'll dig a little bit deeper into each one of those layers in a bit.